Right now, if you want to send like a high-resolution video file to a friend on the other side of the planet, you just hit send.
Right, and it's there.
Exactly. It arrives in milliseconds. The data just moves flawlessly. But if you try to wire that exact same friend, say, $5,000.
Oh, good luck with that.
Right. I mean, the transaction might take 3 to 5 business days. It'll probably bounce through, 3 different intermediary banks.
Each taking a cut, obviously.
Always taking a cut.
Yeah.
And nobody can tell you exactly where the money is while it's in transit.
It's just out there in the void.
Yeah, in the financial void. And it makes you wonder, why is the fundamental infrastructure of money so much slower and, clumsier than the infrastructure of our data?
It's a massive disconnect.
It really is. So today, we are answering that exact question for you. We have a really fascinating article from May 2026 to dive into. It's by Bruce Stewart, and it's titled, Metallicus Builds for Purpose, Not Price.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
And the visual that accompanies this piece, it really sets the tone perfectly. It's this logo for something called the Digital Banking Network. It's this sleek, sort of three-dimensional M, and it's framed by this vibrant rainbow border, but against a completely stark black background.
It looks very structured, very ready for enterprise scale,
Exactly. Methodical. So our mission for this deep dive is to basically cut right through the noisy, chaotic hype cycles of the crypto world. We're going to ignore the memes, and we're going to uncover how the actual invisible plumbing of our future financial system is quietly being built, mostly while no one is even looking.
Yeah, and to really ground us in this shift, I want you to imagine the visual backdrop I'm kind of picturing right now.
Okay, paint the picture.
So think of a completely chaotic, flashing stock exchange floor. You have traders just screaming, red and green charts wildly spiking on these massive monitors.
It's just pure adrenaline.
Pure adrenaline and deafening noise. But then imagine that image slowly crossfading. The screaming just drops away.
The lights settle down.
Yeah, right. The flashing lights settle. And the scene transitions into a serene, highly organized server room.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, just rows of sleek machines quietly pulsing with this steady, cool light. They're processing millions of actions a second in total silence. That transition, from loud, frantic market speculation to quiet, methodical utility, that is exactly the core thesis we are exploring today.
I really love that visual because, for the better part of a decade, the public perception of the word blockchain has been entirely stuck on that screaming trading floor.
Completely.
The narrative is just built around these cycles of extreme speculation. We see projects surging purely on hype or, tokens rallying because of some manufactured narrative.
Yeah, entire digital communities forming around price action.
Right. Instead of actually solving a tangible, real-world problem, it honestly feels like a casino where the chips just keep changing colors.
It really does. And Bruce Stewart, he draws a very sharp line in the sand regarding that exact dynamic. Well, the article argues that two completely divergent paths have emerged in the blockchain space. The first path is building for attention.
Which is the casino.
Exactly. That path relies on short-term trends, social media momentum, really loud ecosystem narratives. But the second path, which is, frankly, exponentially more difficult from an engineering and regulatory standpoint, is building for adoption.
Which is what? The server room?
Yes, the server room. This requires a hyper-focus on compliance, on banking connectivity, payment infrastructure, interoperable identity systems, and institutional settlement rails.
Okay, let's unpack this attention versus adoption dynamic, because I think there is a historical parallel here that might actually explain the phase we're entering.
Oh, definitely.
It feels like the crypto industry is finally having its true dot-com bubble moment.
That is a perfect comparison.
Right. If you look back at the late 90s, everyone was just obsessing over the flashy, highly speculative companies. It was the pets.com phase of the internet.
Where a cool sock puppet mascot got you millions in venture funding.
Exactly. Even if the underlying business logic was just deeply flawed. But the real winner of that era, the technology that actually reshaped the global economy, was the boring, hidden infrastructure that came slightly later.
Amazon Web Services.
Yes. Amazon Web Services. It was the servers, the data centers, the cloud compute power that literally every other business eventually had to rely on. So are we basically moving from the pets.com era of crypto into the Amazon Web Services era of blockchain?
What's fascinating here is that analogy holds up incredibly well when you look at how technology actually permeates society.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We are officially entering the infrastructure era. Stewart makes a really critical point here. He says, While markets move emotionally driven entirely by fear, greed, the human desire for quick returns infrastructure moves methodically.
It's the server room again.
Exactly. The actual reward system of the global market is shifting right now. Regulators aren't just standing on the sidelines issuing warnings anymore.
They're actually doing something.
They are actively developing and deploying clearer frameworks. Comprehensive stablecoin legislation is accelerating globally.
So the playground rules are getting formalized.
Basically, we are moving past the sandbox experimental phase, and because of that, institutional capital is no longer going to reward companies that just spin up speculative closed-loop ecosystems.
So who gets the capital then?
The massive market share of the next decade belongs to the companies solving complex, entrenched operational problems for traditional finance.
Okay, so if a legacy bank is looking to upgrade, they obviously can't touch unregulated code.
No, absolutely not.
If you're a highly regulated entity managing millions of user deposits, you cannot build your entire business model on a tech stack that might just collapse tomorrow because, I don't know, an anonymous founder vanished.
Or a protocol got hacked.
Right. You need absolute stability. You need bank-grade compliance. But that creates this massive friction point.
It's a huge hurdle.
Because if banks want this new infrastructure, but they can't interact with the Wild West of crypto, they're stuck. They need an intermediary that speaks both bank compliance and blockchain architecture.
And that exact friction point is where Stewart's article introduces Metallicus.
Okay, tell me about them.
So instead of chasing those rapid retail attention cycles, Metallicus recognized that banks needed a bridge. They spent years engineering what is essentially a vertically integrated banking ecosystem.
Built specifically for banks.
Designed from the ground up specifically for regulated financial institutions.
Let's talk about the philosophy behind that engineering, because the article highlights a quote from Marshall Hayner that genuinely made me pause.
Oh, I know the one you mean.
Yeah. Hayner says, the next financial revolution won't be built by replacing banks. It will be built by upgrading them with blockchain infrastructure that is faster, smarter, compliant, and connected.
It's a bold statement.
It is, and I have to jump in here and push back on this. You are telling me that the cypherpunks, the early developers who literally wanted to tear down the Federal Reserve and legacy banks.
Hardcore purists, yeah.
Right. They are now building FedNow-compatible software. I mean, the original rebel promise of cryptocurrency was to bypass traditional banks entirely. The whole mantra was, be your own bank.
It was.
So deciding to basically become the IT upgrade for the traditional banking system, that doesn't just feel like a philosophical pivot. To a lot of people in that space, it probably feels like a massive surrender to the empire.
Look, it is entirely fair to see it as a stark philosophical departure from the early white papers. I get that. But I wouldn't call it a surrender.
What would you call it?
I would call it a necessary evolution grounded in scale. Let's look at the actual numbers. The scale of traditional finance completely dwarfs the entire digital asset space.
By a lot, I'm assuming.
By a massive amount. We're talking about U.S. banks and credit unions collectively managing tens of trillions of dollars in deposits, mortgages, and assets.
Trillions. With a T.
Trillions. Trying to aggressively replace an entrenched, globally integrated system of that magnitude with a parallel, unregulated system. It is essentially a losing battle.
It's just too big to tear down.
Exactly. The friction for the average consumer to completely exit the banking system is simply too high. If you stay on the outside, you serve a niche of idealists. But if you rebuild the core routing logic of the legacy system from the inside...
You serve billions of people.
Exactly.
Okay, I see the logic. But even if we accept that upgrading banks is the pragmatic path, integrating with a financial dinosaur is notoriously difficult. I mean, legacy banks run on mainframes from the 1980s.
Yes, they literally do.
You can't just plug a blockchain into a decades-old database and expect it to work. And the article lists this massive wall of technology that Metallicus has built to solve this.
That's a very comprehensive stack.
It's a huge list. I mean, there's the digital banking network, the Metal blockchain, stablecoin infrastructure.
WebAuth for self-custody.
Right. Metal Pay, MetalX, institutional APIs, compliant DeFi architecture, and FedNow-compatible infrastructure.
Yeah.
It is a massive list.
It is.
But reading a list of tech jargon doesn't really explain how it actually functions. Like, how do these different layers actually lock together to solve a bank's problem?
Let's break that massive list down and isolate just 3 of those layers to see the actual mechanism at work.
Sounds good. Which 3?
Let's take the Metal blockchain, their WebAuth identity system, and their stablecoin infrastructure.
Okay.
So in traditional finance, if a bank wants to clear a large transaction, they rely on external clearinghouses, right?
Which takes time and manual reconciliation.
Exactly. But using Metallicus's stack, the process is unified. WebAuth acts as the compliance layer. It instantly verifies the identity of the sender and receiver, checking all the necessary anti-money laundering and KYC boxes before a transaction even initiates.
Okay, so WebAuth is basically the digital bouncer at the door,
Perfect way to put it.
making sure everyone involved is legally allowed to transact.
Exactly. Once WebAuth gives the green light, the stablecoin infrastructure takes over.
Okay.
Instead of moving actual fiat currency through multiple intermediary banks, the value is represented digitally by a stablecoin. And finally, the Metal blockchain serves as the underlying ledger, the highway, essentially, that moves that stablecoin from point A to point B in seconds.
So it's all handled in-house.
Right. Because it is a unified, vertically integrated system, the bank doesn't have to piece together different software from 5 different vendors. Metallicus provides the identity check, the digital currency format, and the settlement highway all in one compliant package.
That's incredibly efficient.
And because they've built FedNow-compatible APIs, this entire blockchain system can talk directly to the Federal Reserve's new instant payment rails.
Here's where it gets really interesting for the consumer, though. Because Metallicus is building this massive interconnected tech stack to upgrade the banks. But how are you, the listener, actually going to experience this upgrade when you open your banking app on your phone?
That's the best part.
Right. The deeply surprising answer is, you probably won't notice it at all.
Which is exactly the hallmark of truly successful infrastructure.
Right, and I want to push a plumbing analogy a bit further here to explain the mechanism of this invisibility.
Okay, let's hear it.
Traditional finance right now is kind of like a city with 1,000 different disconnected water companies.
Okay.
And if water needs to cross from one neighborhood to another, it hits a dead end. Someone literally has to turn a valve, drain the water into a bucket, drive that bucket across town, and pour it into the next pipe.
Which sounds ridiculous, but that is essentially what correspondent banking is today.
Exactly. But Metallicus isn't just laying new pipes. They are building a single, universal water grid.
Right.
As a homeowner, when you walk into your kitchen to get a glass of water, you don't care about the complex physics of municipal water pressure.
No, of course not.
You don't care if the pipes inside your drywall are made of copper or cross-linked polyethylene. You just turn the tap, and you expect the water to flow instantly.
And it does.
Right now, the world's most important financial systems, things like ACH transfers and clearing networks, are completely invisible to consumers. Metallicus is basically installing a brand new, highly pressurized digital grid right behind the drywall of the banking system.
And that bucket passing analogy perfectly illustrates why the current system is so fundamentally broken.
Yeah.
To understand why a bank wants to upgrade its plumbing, we have to understand the specific friction of a traditional cross-border wire transfer.
Walk us through it.
Let's say a local credit union in the U.S. needs to send funds to Europe. That local credit union doesn't have a direct relationship with the European bank.
So they hit a dead-end pipe.
Exactly. So they send the money to a larger national U.S. bank. That national bank holds the money, reconciles its ledger, and then sends a message to an international correspondent bank.
There's the bucket being driven across town.
You got it. That correspondent bank holds the money again, takes a fee, and finally routes it to the destination. At every single hop, capital is locked up, time zones cause delays, and the ledgers have to be manually reconciled. It is incredibly capital inefficient.
So it's not just about speed, it's about freeing up massive amounts of money that are currently just sitting frozen in transit, acting as a buffer.
Precisely. When an institution shifts to the purpose-built stablecoin and settlement architecture that Metallicus provides, that entire multi-day bucket-passing relay race vanishes.
It disappears.
Settlement goes from taking days to taking seconds on a single, shared, immutable ledger. Liquidity management completely transforms because institutions no longer have to lock up massive amounts of capital just waiting for transactions to clear.
And this isn't just theoretical, is it?
No, not at all. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the article cites Metallicus's Q2 2025 report. It highlights their active credit union stablecoin pilots and ongoing partnerships with credit union organizations all across the United States.
Why focus so heavily on credit unions, though? If you have this massive technology, why not just go straight to the top 5 largest global banks?
That's a fair question. But credit unions are actually the perfect foundational layer for this kind of technological rollout.
Why is that?
They are highly regulated, but they're generally more agile and member-focused than massive multinational banks. They actively want to offer their local members faster, cheaper services to stay competitive.
That makes sense.
Right. So by providing credit unions with institution-grade compliance systems and FedNow integrations, Metallicus is proving their technology in rigorous real-world environments that impact everyday communities.
It's financial modernization from the ground up.
Exactly.
But building this invisible, highly regulated infrastructure is, frankly, not very glamorous.
No, it's not.
I mean, getting a credit union integrated into a stablecoin pilot doesn't get you on the front page of social media trending lists.
Definitely not.
And it requires completely ignoring the loud, speculative noise of the broader crypto market. How does a tech company maintain that kind of intense, methodical focus when everyone else in their industry is making headlines, chasing the next big trend?
That brings us to a crucial analytical framework from Stewart's piece.
Okay.
The strongest, most reliable signal of a technology company's actual long-term worth isn't what they announce during a bull market.
Because everyone sounds like a genius in a bull market.
Exactly. During a bull market, capital is cheap, excitement is high, and literally anyone can sell a narrative. The true signal is what a company quietly continues to build during difficult bearish markets when the spotlight fades and the funding dries up.
So what does this all mean? If the hype is constantly misleading, what is the core metric you should be looking for? There is another fantastic quote from Marshall Hayner in the text that I think answers this perfectly.
Let's hear it.
He says, "Price may attract attention. Purpose builds systems that survive."
This raises an important question about how we as a society and as observers of innovation value technological progress.
In what way?
Well, we are so easily distracted by the shiny object, the temporary excitement of a token's price chart moving aggressively upward.
It's hard to look away from that.
It is. But Stewart's article urges us to look at the underlying foundation. Metallicus demonstrated their conviction by expanding their operations during market downturns.
Right.
While other projects were downsizing or pivoting to whatever the newest fad was, Metallicus expanded their developer frameworks. They built out their institutional APIs. They deepened their banking integrations and tightened their compliance systems.
So they were laying deep structural concrete while everyone else was trying to quickly flip digital real estate.
That is exactly what they were doing.
Perfectly brings us to our final synthesis for this deep dive. If we're cutting through the noise, the ultimate takeaway for you today is this. The era of blockchain functioning primarily as a speculative casino is rapidly coming to an end.
Thank goodness.
Right. The real future of finance, the systems that will actually survive the regulatory scrutiny of the next decade, lie with companies like Metallicus. They are the ones doing the incredibly hard, methodical, and often unglamorous engineering required to integrate blockchain natively into the regulated banking apps and the credit unions that you use every single day. They recognize that true disruption doesn't mean tearing down the old system. It means building a bridge that allows the old system to cross over into the future. They are building for purpose, not for price.
And that leads to a final thought I want to leave you with, something to ponder as you look at the financial apps on your phone later today.
Oh, I like a good thought experiment.
If companies like Metallicus succeed, if they achieve their mission, and blockchain seamlessly integrates into the back-end routing of traditional banking, it raises a truly fascinating possibility.
What's that?
Will the average person ever actually know they are using blockchain? Think about it. In a decade, the word crypto might completely vanish from our daily vocabulary. Not because the technology failed, but because it succeeded so completely and became so deeply embedded in the invisible plumbing of our global economy that it just became synonymous with the word money.
A completely invisible revolution.
Yeah.
I really love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it helped you look past the noise and understand the quiet, methodical gears that are actively turning the future of finance. Until next time, keep looking for the infrastructure behind the hype.